All right, I think we have everybody on the line who's registered. This is the Neil and Louise Tillotson Grant Seeker Information Session. We have with us here about 50 participants, and we look forward to sharing more information about the Tillotson Fund with you, as well as our grant making process. The session should take about 30 minutes, and at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. So thank you for joining us this morning. We do have a few Zoom housekeeping suggestions. So if everyone could keep themselves as mute during the presentation, but feel free, there'll be several pauses where you'll be asked if you have any questions. So that would be a good time to unmute yourself and ask any questions that you might have. Also, the session is being recorded. So if you miss anything or your colleagues are not available for this particular session at this time, you can go to the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation's website and you'll get a copy of the recording there. So I think that covers the housekeeping details for this morning. We're just going to take a few minutes to introduce the Tillotson Fund staff to you. So again, I'm Jean Clark. I've been with the Tillotson Fund for about 10 years now. I oversee the local grants program, which you'll hear more about in a few minutes, as well as the Louise Tillotson Teaching Fellowship and the Empower Co-op Youth Grants Program. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sonia, and she will introduce herself.
Well, hello, good morning, good people. I really wish I could be in the room with you and make eye contact and actually have some physical interaction, but here we are on Zoom. My name is Sonia Salanti, and I am the new director of the Tillotson Fund. I've been on the job for about 5 months now, and I am getting to know what my job is, but I primarily provide oversight for all of the Tillotson Fund initiatives and activities. And now I will turn it over to Phoebe.
Good morning, everyone. I am Phoebe Backler. I am a senior program officer with the Tillotson Funds. I work from my home office in Gorham, New Hampshire, and I've been with the fund for a little over 4 years now, and oversee the early childhood work. The Tillotson Fund also has some leadership programs that we support that I'm sort of the liaison for, and then do grant review as well. So it's great to see you all this morning. And John, I think you're next.
Hi there, everyone. My name is John Nickelodeon. I'm here as a program consultant for the Neil and Louise Tillotson Fund, and I facilitate the Empower Co-op Youth Grants Making Program, which we'll hear about later this meeting. And I'll share a little bit more about myself when that time comes around as well. Great to see all of you.
Thanks, John. And we will now move on to the agenda for this morning. As I said, it's going to take about 30 minutes to run through our presentation. We'll start with the overall goals of the Tillotson Fund, and then we'll dive into some of our grant programs, including our large grants program, local grants program, and the Empower Co-op Youth. And then we'll also take a moment to go through the application process, including our online grant source application process, the deadlines, things you should be aware of in terms of questions as well as the criteria. So, and at the very end, we'll also have some time for your questions. So that's how our morning is going to look. So just to start off, the Tillotson Fund was established with the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation back in 2006. It has 11 advisors. So Mrs. Tillotson actually identified, I believe there were 10 advisors, lifetime advisors. They included business associates of Mr. Tillotson, as well as some family members. Since that date, it's been expanded to include several community members. So we now have a total of 11 advisors. They meet on a quarterly basis and spend some time doing grant review, as well as developing strategies for the fund. And so they're a very important part of our process and the overall Tillotson Fund strategy. And now I'm going to turn it back to Sonia, where she's going to talk a little bit more about the goals of the fund.
Great, thank you, Jean. So yes, I'm going to go over briefly the overall goals of the Tillotson Fund, which help us to sort of achieve our strategy. We achieve these goals through doing a number of different initiatives, which would include responsive grants. We do systems change initiatives around early childhood development and economic development. We have a number of leadership programs, and then we also try to work in really close partnership with our nonprofit community members and members of the community themselves. This year, we're also keeping an eye on COVID-related needs and opportunities and trying to respond to those where we're able. I just want to note before I actually dive into the goals that the current goals cover our 2016 to 2021 strategic plan. And right now we're really in this mode of learning and listening in that phase so that we can identify new strategic priorities beyond 2021. Next slide, Jean. All right, so our first goal is to improve the social and emotional health and well-being of children aged 0 to 8 in Coos County. We are really deeply committed to serving the early childhood community, and since 2009, the fund has made a total of $6.3 million investment in early childhood education initiatives. This is part of our systems change work, and we have been working with about 3 partners to do like long-term systems change over a number of years. Next slide. Great, thanks. Our next goal is to advance an increasingly resilient pool of community leaders. And we do this through offering a number of leadership programs. Some of you may have participated in those, and some of you may have heard of them. They include the Tillotson Learning Community, the Community Practitioners Network, the Empower Coos Youth Program, which John will speak about in a bit. And then there's opportunities to participate on our local grants committees. And then every other year we hold a Coos symposium. Another one of our goals is to strengthen communities and deepen people's connections to their communities and to one another. And one example of the way we do this is to provide support for community events venues that serve a broad population of community members in Coos and surrounding areas. Finally, our last overarching goal is to increase the number of businesses in the region that pay a livable wage, keep wealth local, and foster a healthy environment. This goal right now is currently being addressed through our energy efficiency and human-powered recreation value chain initiative, although there are other economic development initiatives that we invest in. So those are the goals that sort of govern the Tillotson Fund as a whole, as all of our grant programs and our initiatives. We're going to dive in now a little more deeply into the grant focus areas. So these are the grant focus for our responsive grants. But before I do that, I want to pause. I know I just basically been reading slides to you, and I want to see if there's any questions on those broader goals before I move on. And because I can't see anybody, you're just going to have to shout out, unmute yourself and shout out if you do have a question. Okay, moving on then. So our grant goals, next slide, please. Our first And just to be clear, I know it can be confusing because we have the overarching goals. These grant goals are the goals that you're going to see on under the local grants and the large grant application process. So these are really the goals that you should be tailoring your project proposals around. So our first grant goal is around a sense of place. that is enriching people's sense of place through connection to their communities and to one another. And an example of that is a grant that Tillotson provided to New Hampshire Public Radio to construct transmitters in Colebrook and Stewartstown towns so that public radio programming could serve 6,000 people in that community. The next grant goal is to promote and enhance cultural and social assets throughout the region. And what that might look like, an example of that is that we provided a local grant to the Brighton Community Forum so that they were able to expand summer performances and concerts into a year-round series of community events. And that was in Island Pond, Vermont in Essex County. And the next goal is to revitalize population hubs and strengthen community gathering places. An example of this type of grant is the grant we made to the town of Jefferson so that they could renovate their community playground to better serve the needs of children and their families in the area. Next is to enhance the region's natural resources by promoting sustainable use of the region's forest, farms, and waterways. And an example of this is a grant that we gave to COAS Cycling Club to continue expanding and improving the non-motorized multi-use trail network on the Pine Mountain in Gorham. That was back in 2018. And then finally, one of our last goals is to address gaps in basic needs for underserved, low-income residents. And an example of that is a grant that was provided to the Indian Stream Health Center pharmacy. The pharmacy was built with Tillotson support, and the goal is to this pharmacy is they participate in a federal program that allows customers to purchase medications at reduced cost. All right, I'm going to pause there. Are there any questions on those 5 goals before we move into the priorities which fall underneath those goals? Nope. Okay. So in the grant program, the goals are the big picture of like the broad categories that basically we're looking for in applications. And then the priorities just help you to narrow in a little bit on the areas that Tillotson invests in. So first priority area is around vibrant downtowns. We love projects that support vibrant and walkable downtowns, community gathering places, cultural enrichment, and that revitalize existing infrastructure. The second is to strengthen town and community planning efforts that incorporate smart growth principles and actively engage a wide variety of residents and stakeholders. We support opportunities for positive youth development and youth-led programming. And then also we ensure that all residents, particularly low income, have access to affordable, fresh, and locally produced foods. And then finally, we ensure that the region's rural landscapes are healthy, intact, and available for public use and long-term community benefit. And that is it for the priorities. Any questions, comments, confusion? Oh, seeing everybody looks like they're okay with that. All right, so we're gonna move now over to Jean, who's going to dive into grant requests.
Yes, so we have, as we've mentioned, 2 grant programs, our large grant program and our local grant program. And so, you know, Sonia, I think this is the wrong slide. I think we were here, actually on municipalities. and working together.
Oh,
So that was.
oh, I see. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody.
That snuck in there by mistake, so sorry about that. So Sonia, do you want to take this slide or do you want me to?
You go ahead, Jean.
Okay, all right. So the Neil and Louise Tillotson Fund's grant making program focuses on strengthening communities and deepening people's connections to one another and the region. So there's some criteria we look for in terms of the proposals we receive. One is that organizations are working in partnerships across multiple departments, organizations, sectors, or towns. That we are enabling communities within a sub-region or region to work together more effectively, to connect individual organizations and programs with regional, statewide, or international initiatives, to demonstrate effectiveness or have an evaluation plan to measure impact, and to leverage resources, including public and private funding. So we want to take a moment here to just focus on municipalities because they bring a unique grant making opportunity for the Tillotson Fund. But overall, we're not looking to replace public responsibility or address budget gaps. So that's a really important piece to understand. And we really encourage you, if you are interested in some sort of project like this, to reach out to staff to have a conversation prior to applying. So we're also looking for projects that show a track record of public support, whether it's in the town budget, through volunteerism, through town voting. So those are particular pieces that are important to us, as well as a commitment to future support of the program and community-based involvement. So again, if you are thinking about making some sort of application to the Tillotson Fund, we ask that you just call us in advance so we can walk through it together.
Hey, Jean, somebody, Drew is asking it to go back one slide to the criteria.
Yeah.
Was there a question, Drew? No, he just missed one. So.
Okay. Thanks, Anya.
Yeah, no problem.
We also take a close look at if there's a request for capital, there's specific criteria around capital requests. We ask that the building plan includes the capital, the operations and ongoing maintenance, that there's a diverse funding mix, that there's a broad base of support, and there's committed staff or board of directors. We have a preference for middle to last dollars on capital projects. And again, if you could just call staff ahead of time so we can walk through your thoughts around your capital request, I think that would be very helpful. So now we're moving into how to apply to the Tillotson Fund. We have an online grant system called Grant Source that you can access through the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation's website. Our portal opens on January 4th. So that means at this point in time, you can't go and log into the system and find an application for the Tillotson Fund. That portal opens January 4th, and the deadline for the programs is Thursday, January 14th. So there's a fairly quick turnaround between the time that the portal opens and the deadline. But what we can provide to you is a list of the questions that you'll see on the application, as well as the word counts. And so you'll be able to, work on your application. You just won't be able to upload it until January 4th. So you can see that there are very specific things that we are looking for in the application process. So you can go in, create your profile right now, and that will include things like contact people. So you can name as many people as you need to on your staff to be involved in the application process. They'll each have a unique username and password. We look for your operating budget. For New Hampshire organizations, we look for an eligibility checklist, and then your EIN number, or for Canadian organizations, the qualified donee number. We also recommend the browser that works best with our system is Google Chrome. So we highly recommend that you try to use that when you're logging into GrantSource. The application itself includes these general areas, an executive summary, which just gives very briefly an overview of your organization. We've added a new question about COVID-19. Here we're looking for, how have you adapted to this new environment? What have been your funding sources that you've accessed either through the CARES Act or other opportunities? And where you see yourself heading in the coming year. Community need is around what do you see going on in your community? Certainly looking for any qualitative and quantitative data that can support that request. Project description focuses on exactly what do you plan to do, your timetable for the work, and who will be involved. The goals section focuses on the Tillotson Fund goals and how your project meets one or more of those goals. So that's, again, critically important when we are looking to evaluate your proposal. Sustainability, that focuses in particular on if you're receiving grant funding, how do you propose your project to go forward in the coming years? And again, project budget. So our local grants program is requests up to $20,000. Most of the requests come in for a 1-year period, but we do consider longer time frames. And again, the portal opens on January 4th. The review process for our local grants, staff receive the applications and we review them for completeness. We do check back with organizations if we're missing any information. Our local grants committee, that's made up of 11 community members, meets in March and reviews all of the proposals that have been received, and then looks at the criteria as well as the goals and priorities of the fund and approves or declines each proposal. So if you're applying in January, you would receive a decision in March. If you apply in July, you would receive a decision in September. And then our large grants program. So the large grants program has one deadline, and that is January 14th. We accept proposals over $20,000 up to $300,000 and up to a 3-year period. So the review process for the large grants program is a little different. Again, we review all of the applications, making sure that we have all the information we need. And then our Tillotson Donor Advised Fund Committee reviews all of the proposals at their March meeting and makes a decision whether they want to award or move the proposal onto the full concept stage. So at that point in time, we reach back to the organizations that are moving on to the concept paper stage, and we ask them to submit a full application. And after we review the full application, it's brought back to our advisory committee at their June meeting, and they make that final decision. So with the large grants program, you'll apply in January and you'll have a decision by the middle of June. So I think that covers our proposal process, but I'm happy to hear any questions at this point in time, or you can reach back to me later on. So. Great, okay. So John, I think we're ready for the Empower Cause Youth Grants Program.
Awesome. Thanks, Jean. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is John Nicolotti, and I'm a program consultant here at the Tillotson Fund, and my role is to facilitate the Empower Cost Youth Grants Program. And just to give you a bit of background about myself, before my time here, as well as up to this time, I do some work with Outward Bound schools. I work for a school in southern New Hampshire called Croak Expeditions, and I've worked a fair amount with the Appalachian Mountain Club. In our region around here, mostly through the frame of Wilderness Expeditions, leadership development, and youth empowerment, which is why I, of course, am so enthralled with this program. It's in its third year. And the way that this program works is that in the spring, students throughout Coos County, as well as surrounding communities in Essex and Grafton counties, apply to be a part of this grant-making committee. They go through a selection process, they're selected, and then in the fall and early winter, which we're currently going through now, they learn about nonprofits and philanthropy, and then in the winter, they apply what they learn, they apply their leadership skills and their perspective of the North Country and their communities to work together as a committee and apply grants to awesome organizations. This is a shot of last year's committee. Jean, if we could go to the next slide, please. And this is a photograph a member of our committee sent in to us this year. They're so busy that I asked for face shots of them so we could make a photo montage, because we're all meeting virtually. For us to share with our communities, and we got photos of their backs because they're all moving about, rushing around, busy, dedicated, serving their communities and giving back. And this is one of the ways they do so, by serving on this grant making committee. This year we have 10 students throughout Coos, Essex, and Grafton counties. And typically the way that it works, it's a one-year proposal up to $10,000, but we don't close the door on multi-year requests. And the total pool of funds that we have is $30,000. And so Empower is in the name, and that's what we're really trying to do by giving these students the resources they have. It's not a small amount of money by any means, to make the changes they want to see, as well as changes that fit within the grant making priorities. And one thing I'd like to throw out there right now is that the geography of the Empower Cost Youth Grants Program is slightly different than the rest of the Tillotson Fund. It does not include Southern Quebec, nor does it include Maine, because we don't have committee members there currently. And so our geography reflects where our committee members live, which is currently in Coos County, Essex County, and nearby communities in Grafton County are all part of that. We can go to the next slide, Jean. Okay. And so these are the program priorities for the Empower Cost Youth Grants Program. One cool thing that I would like to share is that in the first year of the Empower Cost Youth Grants Program, the students, the committee members, decided on these priorities. So it's both youth driven, but it's also youth developed as well. It makes you kind of wonder what I actually do here at all. But anyways, those priorities are to support environmental initiatives and programs that focus on reducing carbon emissions through education and awareness building, or through direct carbon reduction practices, to increase extracurricular activities for youth ages 12 to 22, such as programs and activities that build community, enhance environmental education awareness, or increase access to science, music, arts, and athletics. And then as well to strengthen community engagement through events and public gatherings that enhance connection and togetherness. And some thoughts that come to mind of past recipients are the Bethlehem Trails Association for development of a mountain biking skills park, the Tilly Players Drama Club to expand theatrical arts programming in Colebrook. And then another one that comes to mind would be the Boys and Girls Club in the North Country to support after-school environmental education programming. Let's go to the next slide, Jean. Sure. So it is a competitive program. And so some preferences, strong preference is given to proposals that hit these thoughts outlined here. Initiatives and programs have engaged youth ages 22 and under in design, implementation, and decision-making process of the organization or project. Strong preference is given to programs in organizational leadership that is focused on increasing participation for groups and individuals that face barriers to access. And throughout this, applicants should demonstrate how the initiative is reducing barriers to participation. And then for requests more than $5,000, a long-term regional impact should be demonstrated. Next slide, please, Jean. The way the review process works is that, of course, please take a look to review your application for completeness before submitting. The Empower Co-op Youth Grants Committee will meet in March for their grant making meeting to review and then approve or decline applications, and then applicants are notified shortly after that in late March or early April. That's all I have to share at this moment. Back to you, Jean.
Great, thanks, John. So we're about to wrap up. We just want to emphasize again that the portal opens on January 4th, which is a Monday. Of course, you can begin working on your application right now, but you can't upload the information until the 4th. And again, I'll be sending out some information following this session to each of you that will include all of the questions on the application as well as the word counts. You can also begin creating your organizational profile or updating it. And so those are two things that I think, you know, we want to make sure that you get your application in on time, and we recommend that, you know, you get started now. So also we're going to offer to everyone, if you're interested in a one-on-one conversation with staff, you're more than welcome to reach out to any one of us, and we'd be happy to schedule a phone call. So now we'll turn it back to you and see if you have any questions for us or comments.
I kind of have a question about the pandemic. Are you guys considering if there are grant requests for like retooling so that institutions can try to continue furthering their mission, but it might not be in the traditional way? Is that something that the Tillotson Fund is interested in looking at, or do you want us to stay away from pandemic related topics?
Yeah, Christine, that's a great question. I don't know, Sonia, if you want to take that.
Yeah, I can dive in there. Please do not stay away from pandemic related questions, because I think it's just a very real moment right now where we're in an uncertain time and many organizations are having to retool and figure out what's next. I would say that we are, you know, just like everybody else, we're in a process of trying to figure out how to best respond to community need. And so what I would invite you to do is just reach out to me or reach out to Phoebe or Jean and just have a conversation with us and let us know what you're thinking. What are the challenges that you're experiencing, and we can help navigate you through whether it's like, well, I think, going for a local grant might be the best thing, or there's other mechanisms that we can look at. So rather than, feel like the door isn't open, please reach out to us, because we are actively actually trying to figure out how we can support folks during this most unprecedented of times.
Thanks.
I do have one question.
I think someone has a question, but we can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'll speak a little bit louder. I'm more interested in the landscape found. I was wondering if you have some example of project that have been financed that would respond to the goal, the grand goal, healthy rural landscape, available places for public access for public. I was wondering if you finance a project previously that was reaching this goal, and if you can give me some example as well.
Yeah, I don't know, Phoebe, do you have an example you'd like to share or something?
Sure, absolutely. Well, so I think in the slideshow, the example of the Coa Cycling Club was shared, and that is a nonprofit organization based in the Androscoggin Valley that is working on trail development for mountain biking. And similar to some of the criteria that were described in the slideshow as well, their work is intending to be inclusive of a broad range of community members, volunteers, and they've brought in several different funding sources. There are several other organizations across the region that are doing similar trail building work. We have also worked with land conservation organizations that are seeking funds to secure tracts of lands, working with community forest groups. But if you have, again, I think Sonia's point of reaching out to us, if you have a specific project that you're interested in exploring further, please do just reach out to us anytime and we can talk through whether it's a fit.
And I would just
Thank you very
add to
much.
that for everybody, if you go to the Neil and Louise Tillotson Fund section of the Charitable Foundation website, at the very bottom of the page, there's blogs, and many of those blogs highlight the various types of projects that we funded over the years, and they will just give you a really good idea of the depth and the breadth of the type of activities that we support.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I do have one other question. We received a fund from the Tillotson, thank you very much, for a project in St. Edwidge de Clifton, which was an aménagement, a planning process. And this planning process has the conclusion of it will be very good. In fact, it would help the community to get deeper, to work deeper. But one of the recommendation and one of the project that will come out from this planning exercise is very hard to finance because it asks interaction between the school kids, the parents, the municipality, artists, people with the knitting woman, etc. So and it's like people from everywhere to create a new fence that will be really beautiful. And I was wondering, I'm starting to think about how to finance that, and I saw that you one of your goal is to work as a leverage, for other public funds. And you know that I do have like a government fund on my desk in the DMRC of Queticook. So I was wondering if that kind of project will be like well received, to make the people acting together, but it will finish with an installation, something solid, that the people will build together or imagine together and be built with professionals.
Oh, thanks, Sylvie. That's a wonderful question. I think it goes back to the partnerships that you've established through the planning process and the execution of the project. So I think you may recall during our presentation we mentioned that, and so I think the other critical piece is the diversity of funding sources, which I think you've mentioned when you name leverage. So those two pieces, would be of interest to the Tillotson Fund in terms of a proposal.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you for joining us this morning. As I said, you'll be hearing from us this afternoon via email, and we'll be sharing.
Jean, I think I see one more question.
Oh, wonderful. Martha,
did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Hi, thank you so much for this presentation. I'm wondering if there is a way to organize like who should appeal to whom? Like, I do have a question that's personal, so I don't want to take the whole group's time, but is there like a way of, do you organize it anyway? Should I contact Phoebe or Jean or John or Sonia, or it doesn't matter really?
Right. I think that you can reach out to any one of us and we'll get started. You know, so Martha, we don't have specific sectors that we work with, but any one of us could probably answer your questions. So, so feel free to reach out to one of us.
Thank you.
And I did mention in the chat, like, if you're not sure, if you reach out to Jean, sorry, Jean, to put you on the spot, she'll know who the right person is. If you just give her a quick, like, I want to talk about this, then she should be able to either answer it herself or direct you to somebody who's suited.
All right, so I think those are our questions for this morning, but again, if anything comes to mind, feel free to give us an email, send an email our way, and we'll follow up with you. So again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.